Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Sunday edition of New Frost Morphs, and beautiful Emily, my daughter, is joining me today. Welcome, Emily.
Hello.
And thank you for bringing in your Christmas present. And we thought we'd start off by just showing our viewers how beautiful your Tenrec's settling in, and then you'll pop it back into the Viv, and then we'll carry on with the video afterwards. So thank you everyone for your love and support and jumping on our channel. So do you want to pass me the camera, Emily, and you can show us your new addition?
Sure.
So, what have you got there, by the way?
It's just a little pouch, just to keep her warm if it's a bit cold.
Oh, ooh, so cute! Oh, I'm sure a lot of our followers are going to be falling in love with this little fella. Is it a boy or girl?
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm calling her her for now.
Yeah. Boys have slightly milkier eyes, don't they?
Their eyes are more puffy and their nose is shorter, more like triangular.
Yeah.
Square, not triangular.
I mean, it looks like a hedgehog, doesn't it? But it isn't.
No, it's not a hedgehog.
Yeah. And how's your new pet settling into the new Viv that you set up?
Good, yeah. She was a bit nervous at first, but she's good now.
Yeah, and how did you cope with the power cut? Because we had the power cut last weekend, and
yeah.
how did you manage to keep her warm? What temperature does she need, and how did
she needs at least 25, around 26 more, but I just held her the whole day.
So you used your body heat to keep her warm?
Yeah.
Poor Emily. I mean, the house was really cold as well. It was 18 hours, 19 hours, and she's come through it really well, but we won't overstress her because she's in a slightly different environment, and as much as she's so pretty, I know that she's probably better off going back into a Viv. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the behaviour side of the snakes while you're doing that, Emily, and then you're going to join us in a couple of minutes. So thank you for showing us your beautiful,
That's all right.
beautiful animal.
I'll go put her back.
Lovely. Right. While Emily does that, just to give you guys an update on where we are, let me just zoom out a little bit so I'm not too close. So a bit of self-filming here. Now I've got one of these Canon EO5 cameras which allows me to flip the back, and I can see what I'm actually recording rather than guessing. So just bear with me while I do that. Oh, there we go, that's better. So anyway, I've had a really, really good day today. The Sabbath is always a day of rest for me, and it hasn't been a day of rest for several months because Jared and Jess have been going to worship church, and I normally go, but because of my hip and my operation, I've had to kind of self-isolate a little bit, and I've been staying here, and I've been feeding my spirituality by just being uplifted by really uplifting talks and really uplifting worship. And I do home worship, and a lot of us who have been affected by COVID have had to adapt the way in which we worship, and you do miss that social interaction. And this is another reason why I really enjoy the interaction I'm having with you guys, because I'm getting some social connection, which is so important for me, as well as I'm lucky enough to have a family around me. But for many of us, we might be feeling quite lonely, and it does make us feel quite low. But I just think it's really lovely that we can use technology to keep us boosted and keep us going. So what I'm going to do now, just to give you a report. So no cleaning today, not one poo to change. We're on day 16 of since anything's eaten. So I think everything's kind of cleared out. Everything's in a really good state. Everything is healthy, glowing, and calm, and doing what they should be doing, which is either bowl wrapping or heat seeking. There has been some interesting behaviour which I'm going to share this morning, and then after that we're going to do the feedback. I'm going to give Richard at Predator BP a shout out before. I'm not going to leave him to the end this time and make sure I'm going to give Richard a shout out, and then we're going to go over the feedback. And thank you everyone for your lovely feedback, because it's been very beneficial. I've learned so much from your experiences and given me a balance as to what's going on, so thank you for that. And then if we've got time, we're going to continue with the discussion of the different myths that are out there. And I think the one I wanted to talk about is, if we identify that the ball pythons are eating a varied diet, and they do ambush in holes, but they also eat birds and squirrels and other tree life, then at night there's evidence to say that they do go out and they explore the trees, and they live predominantly mainly in forests as opposed to farmland, is what the understanding I've got. Then it begs the question, should we be giving them a more varied diet, is one question. And the next question is, should we be giving them opportunities to forage, opportunities to have enrichment, because when they're foraging, they're enriching, they're spreading. Today, because I had so much time on my hands, I allowed my snakes to move around their rubs. I opened up the rubs and they were just moving around and just gently exploring their local territory. And I thought that was really nice because I wasn't touching them and they were naturally going where they wanted to go. I was supervising them. And a couple of the hatchlings, I'm noticing they were getting hungry because they haven't eaten for 2 weeks? Yeah, I think they haven't eaten because of the storm issue we had. So they haven't eaten for 2 weeks, and they're showing us their desire to eat because some of them were coming out and wanting to eat. So Jade and I will start feeding next week. But I think it's been really healthy for the hatchlings also to build up an appetite, and that leads me nicely on to a point that Rob made about how we assist feed and when we assist feed. And I made a big mistake in my first year of being a bull keeper breeder, is I tried my first assist on an animal that didn't need assist feeding because I thought that when they came out of their eggs they needed feeding pretty quickly, but it turns out that the egg that they consume can sustain them for 2 or 3 weeks comfortably without any worries, except for the exceptions where you get some snakes that haven't absorbed all their eggs. They're in boob eggs, or they've got deformities, or they've got disabilities, and they need extra special attention. And it might be worthwhile assist feeding them very early so they don't drop down too small and too weak that the assist feeding becomes too stressful for them. So there's a balance and a decision that you've got to make there as a reliable breeder. And unfortunately I lost one of my hatchlings in my first year of breeding because of my anxiety to think that they're not feeding, they need to feed, and I kept on trying to feed it and I gave it a negative feeding response. Whereas if I'd have been patient and if I would have just left that animal to naturally find its hunger, I reckon we would still have that snake today. So sometimes we learn the hard way in this hobby, but I just put that out to be transparent with you, and particularly the new breeders that maybe haven't assist fed before, don't rush into it unless you feel you have to, but give them 2 or 3 weeks to get their appetite building, and then if they're still not taking after that point, then obviously assist feed. Emily's now come back, so I'm going to pass the camera over to Emily. Thank you, Emily.
That's alright.
Over to you. But I've just been having a little brief chat while you're out about all the different feedback we've been getting on the channel.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to be just talking about behaviour. Now, I had a really easy cleaning day, Emily.
Yeah.
It is the Sabbath, day of rest. And I've been blessed not to have to clean one poo, not even one wee. And I've had 3 more perfect sheds. Now I'm doing an experiment, Emily. See the fogger that's running there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I came in this morning and I filled it up late last night and it was empty again, and we were down to 53% on our humidity. And I'm trying to get up to 70, but the capacity of that fogger isn't allowing me to keep enough humidity in my facility. Having said that, I've had 3 sheds today that have all been perfect. So something's happening. That's without spraying down the rubs and without spraying down the animals. So we're doing an experiment, Emily. And I think what I'm going to do is, I've got one window open at the moment for fresh air to come in. I might just close that window a little bit and just close it down so that the humidity builds and doesn't escape the facility. So I think a lot of the humidity that I'm producing is escaping through the window. But I don't want it to be stale air in here either. But having said that, no poos, no wheeze, very little CO2 build up in here. It is an absolute pleasure. Walking into the facility and not being bombarded by smells is a lovely feeling. I mean, have you noticed the difference in smell, Emily, when you came in?
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's pretty good, isn't it? And so there's another blessing there for not overfeeding your snakes. So let's have a look at the first thing I'm just going to do is on the behaviour side is we were going to actually give Richard a shout out first and then talk about the behaviour. No, behaviour first, then Richard at Predator BP, we're going to give him a shout out, and then we're going to talk about the feedback. So let's have a little look and see what we've got going on. Now, we had a male boy bowl wrapping today. Why would a male bowl wrap? Bowl wrapping is normally associated with females that want to build follicles, but why would a boy bowl wrap, Emily?
To cool down, I don't know.
He obviously wants to cool down, but is there something that they realise they need to do?
Is it something to do with their sperm things?
Yes. So boys will want to keep their sperm at a certain temperature, and many slugs are caused by boys overheating, and they actually burn out the life in their sperm. If they sit on over 93 degrees Fahrenheit for too long, that can destroy their sperm and their season's over. And as much as they might lock, as much as they might pair, they're firing blanks. So it's really important that you keep a low gradient. A lot of my boys I put in strategic positions on slightly colder areas of the rack system. I do that on purpose because a lot of them really like it, and they still got a nice gradient, but it gives me another extra 2 or 3 degrees of wiggle room that if I get a spike in temperature, it might go up to 90, but it shouldn't go beyond 90. So there's my safety net for protecting the sperm of the boys. But let's have a look at the boy that's bowl wrapping, and then we'll look at the females. There's 5 girls that were bowl wrapping, and there's 1 boy and 3 perfect sheds, and we're going to give you an update on Jade. Now Jade is the mother of our purple passion clutch. She hasn't eaten since she's been off food for 5 months, and because Jade and I were really worried, we took her to the vet to see if there was any postnatal issues, and it turns out that there is, that she was traumatized giving birth to her eggs, and she's been off food for so long that I think it really took a lot out of her. And so we've taken the vet's advice, and we've been giving her extra. She said that the vet told us that she was deeply dehydrated as well, which wasn't helping, and we're finding that really hard because you know how much I spray down the rubs and how much I try and get the fogger working. She must be going through something inside that's causing her to dehydrate. So I think her pregnancy and her delivery knocked her for 6 basically. And I think, you know, women get postnatal depression. I wonder if she's suffering with no postnatal depression and doesn't want to eat. And we had a similar situation with Jupiter, who was our beautiful het clown girl. She was a butter het clown. Now if you have a quick look at her, she's doing so much better. Come and have a look, Emily. She's taken food now and she's rebuilt her strength. And you can see her in here now, how beautiful she looks and how much chunkier she is. But now I'm going to compare her with Jade, who still hasn't eaten yet, but because she gave us a perfect shed, I'm very hopeful that she'll take a small multi this week. And when she starts to take her first meal, so let me just have a little look and see if she is in the position. There she is. Can you see her? There's Jade, and there's her perfect shed, and then she's in absolutely perfect condition. Now I don't want to stress her out too much, so it'll be a quick in and out job. But she gave us a perfect shed, and I didn't spray her down, so it tells me that our humidity is better, and that the treatment that the vet's given her is improving her to the point where she is feeling a lot better. So the things you can do is you can bathe them in the right temperature water. That helps to get them hydrated. Change their water frequently, give them a little bit of extra love and attention, and just be patient, and eventually, like Jupiter, they will hopefully, fingers crossed, come back on food. Luckily she was a very big girl, and this is one of the dangers of breeding our girls too small. If they end up having postnatal depression and they were small to start with, they could, if they fast for 5 months, they could drop down really badly. So that's another good reason why you shouldn't really breed your girls too small. Now the other ones that I wanted to show you, if you have a look at this one, Emily, bowl wrapping, Terry. We showed her yesterday, she's still bowl wrapping, so hopefully still building follicles. This is the boy that was bowl wrapping, which is Bambi, which we thought was a girl. Now look, he's a boy, he's a lesser spot nose, and can you see he's cooling, and I think he's cooling because he wants to protect his sperm, just wants to feel more comfortable. His heat spot's only about 87, 88, so it's nothing to do with overheating. It's literally he wants to cool down, which is fair enough. And it might be because we've increased the ambient temperature that he's doing this. And so there's your second. Now let's have a quick look at the other 2. So here we've got Cappuccino. I didn't show her yesterday because she wasn't bowl wrapping, but today she's bowl wrapping. That's a good sign. It means that they're building follicles again. So that's Cappuccino. She is the lesser platinum, and she gave us 2 babies last year. And here I think I did show you, and I'll do this with the hook, Phoenix. We showed her yesterday, but she continues to bowl wrap every day, which means that's a good sign. She's still bowl wrapping. There she is. We'll put her back. Let's see what else we've got going on here. Anything else I was going to show you? Yes, the other girl that's bowl wrapping is over here. She was bowl wrapping yesterday. That's the Bamboo girl. See if she's still bowl wrapping. Yep, she's still bowl wrapping. Although she has released her grip on there, but this morning she was fully gripped onto that bowl. But she's created extra humidity in there. So she has actually spilt a little bit of her water, and Rob's come back to me, and yesterday I asked Rob to let me know what's going on in his facility. He's got high humidity in the tropics, and he reckons that the reason why they spill their bowls is because if they've got low humidity, they go more into their bowls, and they're going to have a higher likelihood of actually spilling or moving something. He also said that he thinks that when his snakes are getting to this point where they need to be upgraded on their tub size, if they continually start spilling their water bowls, Emily, it means that their tub's probably too small. Does that make sense? So I think there's some really practical ideas from Rob on that. He does get animals. He said he's gone for the large bowls himself and the big girls, and he said occasionally he does get them still tipping water, and paper does get in there. So it's an acknowledgement that we both have the same experiences, but just an acknowledgement that I think there's more to it than perhaps Rob thinks. I think Rob thinks it's just a consequence of them seeking the bowl for humidity, and I think that they are purposely spilling their water bowls to get extra humidity, and that's the difference we have really, which is very subtle, and we mustn't overthink these things. There's so many other really important issues we can look at. But now let's go and have a look at Rich at Predator BP. Give him a shout out. And let's see, now I've got this, I should be able to find Rich's channel very easily now. All I've got to do is get the video up, and let's just see if I can Predator BP. There's his channel, and I've just got to get the TV controls over here. And let's see if we can get this working now. So if I exit this, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do what Jade and I do. Let's do it straight off the iPad, Emily. So Richard's got 24, nearly 25,000 subscribers, and Richard introduced me to Rob, to Ron, and to Small Town Exotics as well. So he's introduced me to the Four Horsemen, and that's Shane that runs that with his family. They're all very keen breeders and keepers, and a lovely group, and they put out quite a lot of videos. So there's the logo. Can you see the logo there, Emily? Do you want to zoom in on Richard's logo? And let's have a look at the most popular video. What's the most popular video that he's got on his channel, Emily? Can you see it? So if you click on that box there, you can see the latest videos. So I think it's that one there. There's 211,000 views on one video, which is 10 times his subscriber base. And it's called How to Pick Up Your Ball Python, a Beginner's Series. So let's have a little look and see. We'll get rid of the ad.
For centuries, I lived life in the shadows, so I created Eternal Eyes. We sell killer shades with...
Okay.
Hey guys, it's Rich from Predator BP. On today's video, I'm going to cover how you pick up your new pet snake. Now, whether it's a ball python, whether it's a boa constrictor, whether you're keeping them in a tub system, a rack, or whether you're keeping them in the vivarium, we're going to try and cover this for you today. Now, what's prompted me to do this video, and I've done videos very similar to this with handling, but today we're just going to focus specifically on picking the animal up, is I've had a lot of comments recently from a lot of new keepers just getting in, asking this question. So let's get straight to it and cover it. So guys, let's start at the beginning with you, the keeper. There might be this sort of natural fear in you that when you get your animal home and you've got all excited about your animal, that you go, I'm not sure how to pick this animal up, and to be honest, I'm a little bit afraid. Now, when I got my first ever snake, it was ball python, and I remember going to the reptile shop, picking up this animal, getting home, and it came home in one of those little plastic boxes, and then going, I don't know how to touch this animal, I don't know how to pick this animal up. And I remember getting the plastic box and putting that in the enclosure, and then...
So Rich tells his story. He relates very much, and what's really clever about Richard's channel is that he teaches the very beginners on there, and I was a very beginner just 2 years ago. So when I saw Richard's channel, I thought, this guy's talking a lot of sense, and he doesn't assume that we've got a vocabulary and we know what we're talking about, which is really helpful because he's got so many new beginners and new people that have come into the hobby because of the way he presents himself. He's very clear, he's very passionate about his hobby, and I want to say thank you to Richard because he's partly responsible for why I'm in. I mean, you are as well, Emily, because let's face it, you got me into the hobby because you had some health issues. Jade had some snakes. You wanted to go pick up a snake. I wanted to treat you to a lovely snake, and we picked up Kylo. Was it Kylo, our first snake?
Yeah.
By the way, he's looking stunning at the moment, and he wanted to breed the other day, just to let you know.
That's not Kylo.
It's not Kylo, sorry. Let's get Kylo out. Look how lovely he is, Emily. You see how beautiful he looks? I think he's looking the best I've ever seen him, to be honest with you. What do you think?
Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah. So we've only bred with him once, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, please go and give Richard some love, and if you haven't subscribed, I would definitely highly recommend it. Excellent channel, very comprehensive. He works alongside Rob as well. Rob's been his mentor, and Rob has helped Richard learn an awful lot about keeping ball pythons. Richard comes from a background of keeping snakes quite a long time ago, but not necessarily ball pythons as much. But he's got into the ball python in the last 3 or 4 years. But to build up 25,000 subscribers in less than 3 years is going some. And I still, to this day, I've got to keep on finding out from Richard how he's doing this, because obviously he's putting out good content, but he's doing something else that I'm not doing, which is reaching the audience as much as I should be. So he's obviously got some techniques that I've got to try and learn, but we're going to carry on building it, and hopefully we can build up our channel as well. So go and give Richard some love. So let's talk about now some of the discussion topics of today's video and the feedback that we've got from our subscribers. Now yesterday, Emily, I put out poor Emily, she's finding it quite hard. Are you feeling the humidity?
Yeah.
It's actually, I mean, I know it sounds bad this, because I mean, Mandy's the same, and Jared's the same, and I've got used to it. But when we come in here, if we're starting to feel uncomfortable, our snakes are probably feeling comfortable. If we're feeling too comfortable, we've probably got the humidity and temperatures wrong. So in some ways, I won't keep you too long, Emily. Do you want me to take your hat off? That might help.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but Emily's wearing a hat, so let's take that off. Right, let's just get yesterday's video and let's talk about some of the feedback. And thank you so much. We had 23 comments, and the first one I was going to cover was Ben from BG Pythons, and this is what Ben had to say. This is a very interesting paper. So I was referring to some study papers on the eating habits of ball pythons, and I think the myth that we are sometimes taught is that ball pythons spend predominantly all their time in a hole ambushing rats. In actual fact, the studies are showing different behaviour. I mean, they do spend a lot of time in holes and they do eat rats, and they're normally the African furred rats, not the Norwegian rats that we give them. And again, there's a topic there that we can come back to another point. But the studies were showing that they did 80, Emily, they caught 80 ball pythons in Africa in the daytime, 83 ball pythons. Most of them were up in trees. How they got them out I do not know, but they were in a forestry area. Now I've also learned that ball pythons, high populations are in forests rather than farmland. They go into farmlands because farmlands will produce a lot of rodents, because the rodents are going to be eating the farmers' crops. So they're opportunists, they'll go into that. But there's the majority of them like to be in forest setups, which makes sense because there's more humidity in a forest, there's more cover, and also there's a lot of wildlife in the forest, so there's going to be a lot more feeding opportunities. So to me that makes sense. So they will use termite mines as well. Now some of those can be bigger than giraffes, and there's a picture in the study. If you look at the article I mentioned yesterday, and I put a link on the comments if you want to see it, some of them were bigger than giraffes, and the person was saying that if a ball python uses that, which other reptiles use as well, whereabouts in there are they going to be using it, and why would they use a reptile? Why would they use a termite mound, Emily? What's the properties that they would like, do you think, and why they would use them?
I've got to listen.
You're not listening?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Why would a ball python use a termite mound as a hide?
I don't know what that is.
Do you want to show you? I can show you a picture. It's great big. It's something where termites just build these great big nests.
Oh yeah.
They're massive. I mean, you see them in the forest. We've got ants that build nests.
Yeah.
It's similar to that, where they just basically build these big, and they can be taller than a giraffe.
Oh yeah.
But they keep the heat. They seek heat. You know, ball pythons seek heat. So inside there's going to be warmth. So they've got the warmth that they need to get their because they're cold-blooded. They need that heat from some source. So they use it for heat source. Also, rodents use it as well. Therefore, there's food, and therefore that's one of the habitats that they will use. They also use burrows of other animals as well, and they go in and out of those. But from the studies, we learn that they forage in trees, which means they climb trees and they're getting exercise and they're getting enrichment. Now, the difference that we have in captivity is some of us give more enrichment than others. Professional keepers and breeders tend to go for rack systems because they find it more convenient for their setups. And when you've got, like, we've got 160 animals in here, and if I had a viv for every animal, I'd need a building as big as my house to be able to do that. But it doesn't stop me from thinking carefully about how I can give them enrichment. Now, how can we enrich our snakes, Emily, so they get the opportunity to feel like they're foraging even though they may not be? What can we do to help our snakes get that enrichment? You're really good at doing this because you spend quite a lot of your time enjoying the snakes, don't you, when you can? Mm-hmm. You don't overhandle, but you do handle them. Yeah. So what ideas have you got that we can enrich our snakes?
Just feeding them in a proper way, like how you kind of move them rat a little bit when you're feeding it.
Yes.
Make it look like a live rat.
Yeah, so when you're feeding your animal, you can give them enrichment. Don't make it too easy for them if they're really up for it. Maybe let them have part. The fun of it's the hunt. Some of the animals choose to hunt. I put it in front of them and they want it moving. They want to move. And so that's one very clever way of doing it. I have seen breeders create, they're like little, you can buy them, Emily. Have you seen these little hexagons that have got holes in for hatchlings? And snakes can go in them and they can crawl in and out of them and they can have enrichment time. Like you would as you were a child, I took you to the play area and you used to go on the swings, the slides, and you had enrichment time. When you went home, you ate your tea and you went to bed and you were happy. Now, I know it sounds weird to compare a snake with human. Obviously, they're two different species. But I do think that there are breeders out there that invest in these toys and they allow their snakes to enjoy enrichment, and they're really happy for them, and it appears to work. I've got other friends who have vivs that have decorative vivs with lots of branches that are laid laterally. And your very first studies, Emily, you were asked to look after some ball pythons that weren't kept in particularly good condition. And that's why you changed your veterinary college, because ironically Emily was learning to care for a whole range of animals, and the veterinary college she went to, the first one she went to, was appalling. And the ball pythons were full of mites. They were full of lots of issues, weren't they?
Yeah.
It saddened you. You came home and you couldn't come in the facility because you didn't want to bring any mites into here.
Yeah.
And I said to Emily, this doesn't feel right to me. You're going to a veterinary college that's not actually caring for these reptiles. And then you changed your veterinary college to another one, which is so much better, and you're so much happier now, aren't you?
Yeah.
And thank goodness, that was so important for Emily to make that change. And you know, sometimes we make decisions and we think it's right, and when you get into a situation, it doesn't always work out the way you want it to. So just talk to me about, they had cohabitation going on as well, didn't they? They
had like four little pythons living together.
Yeah. So you found big vivs with four ball pythons. Were they living
really
in?
Big.
Was it a small viv?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were they doing? Were they living happily, or they obviously they weren't? You weren't happy with the conditions, but were they actually showing social tolerance, or they? What?
They're all pretty much apart from each other. They weren't really near each other.
Okay, so they lived in isolation.
Yeah.
Did they have their separate hides or not?
They had just like wooden branches and hides like natural hides that they can make, but they were all kind of...
Okay, so that's interesting. So there is an article about cohabitation, and normally it's to be avoided in the hobby. People say keep them solitary, only introduce them when you're pairing, and there's some good reasons for that. But also there's others that actually are recommending cohabitation as part of a social networking, which I find interesting. It's a different way of It's a different spin on it. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but there's a guy who put out an article who kept 4 snakes together for about 3 months, and they were living in harmony and loving it. And there wasn't any fighting and bickering. They all were sharing, and even when they were feeding, which was, I'm amazed by this, because you would think you'd never want to feed 2 snakes in the same together. I never thought that'd be so potentially dangerous, wouldn't it? Can you imagine trying to